organizasyonların üzerinde operasyonel verimliliği sürdürmek, müşteri destek ve hizmetlerini geliştirmek konusunda sürekli artan baskılar söz konusu. Organizasyonlar için yeni yasal uyumluluklar, denetim ihtiyaçlarına uyum, gelir artışına yönelik beklentiler, operasyonel sistemlerdeki başarılı veri entegrasyonu da çok önemli hale getirmiştir. Informatica, kapsamlı çözümleri, ortak hataları en aza indirme konusunda yardımcı olurken, aynı zamanda başarısı kanıtlanmış veri taşıma teknolojisi, metodolojisi ve hizmetleriyle riskleri ve toplam maliyetleri azaltmaktadır. Modernizasyon projeleriyle maliyetleri düşürürken, riskleri nasıl azaltabilirsiniz başlıklı sunumuyla, Informatica, ILM Ürün Pazarlama Başkan Yardımcısı Julie Lockner'ı kürsüye davet ediyorum. Dear Julie, stage is yours.
Great, thank you everyone. My colleague is from California and I'm from Boston, different part of the coast, but it's a pleasure to be here and I've enjoyed marching through your city these last couple of days in great weather. We're going to talk about how to de-risk your applications. This picture is daunting and represents what many CIOs think about when they approach a major ERP migration or replacement project. As the quote says here, ERP replacements are to CIO careers what barely submerged shoals are to a sailor, a deadly hazard between you and where you want to go. We don't want this to happen for Informatica customers. The challenge is ERP, or business application implementations, are very complex. They're very involved with multiple stakeholders. There's a huge investment if you're looking at applications like SAP. A typical cost is $50 million US dollars. A typical project length is 18 months. And 38% of these projects miss their go-live date or go over budget. And no one likes to admit that they've taken too long or spent too much money. But the problem is that if you look at the 38% of those projects that have missed their go-live dates, have missed it by at least 3 months, and those that have gone over budget have gone over by at least $8 million or more. Now in the United States, this is a casualty for many CIOs' careers. In fact, California recently implemented an SAP project for their government with about $250 million over budget. It's taxpayers' money. So it gets a lot of exposure. Our government is not immune to this either. In the military, the Marine Corps implemented a global consolidation for SAP and overspent by over $1 billion. The problem is that application migrations, many of these projects the project teams make assumptions that you have few sources of data, when the reality is, when you look at the Turk Telecom list of sources of applications that were along the data warehouse project, that is very common. Multiple applications, many sources, and not always consistent from one application to the next. The formats, you may think you know what the data formats are, but in reality, when you go to migrate that application, you find out that there are new formats or new text information that is being implemented into those legacy applications. There is a common misconception that when you migrate all of the data from one application to the next, that the fields will magically align. But that's not the case either. We know that there's always missing fields, there are more fields, there are missing data, and it's up to us as the data architects to find what's missing. And a lot of times, the interfaces for these applications you believe to be documented, when in reality, they're not. We find things that are being developed and implemented, that person left, and now it's up to you as a data architect to reverse engineer and figure out where did this data come from. And the biggest problem with some of these projects is you think that the source information or the system that you're replacing has quality information. When we all know that the reality is that many of these applications have bad quality data. With Informatica, we look at three things. We look at how to avoid the risk with methodology, with tools to automate, and service delivery with Informatica professional services and with our partners like KOMTAŞ. That's one part. But what about the advanced needs? What about ways that you can eliminate cost and de-risk those go-lives and make sure you're successful for the next project migration? Bloor Research is an analyst firm who conducts research on what makes a successful application migration project. And you'll notice in this list, data profiling tools, data cleansing tools. These are all of the best practices that they suggest by deploying these types of approaches, you will improve your application go-live success. But if you look at this list, it's very similar to the skills and the types of technology that you would use to implement a data warehouse. In fact, 80% of an application migration project is really focused on the data, migrating the data from your old system to your new system. So if you build your career, if you build your expertise on technologies such as these listed here for your data warehouse project, you can reuse and leverage those skills and apply those best practices to your application migration project. It makes sense, right? Well, now, if you think about how many times have you gone through an application migration project? Most companies have more than 6 applications managing finance in a large enterprise organization. So think about back to Turk Telecom's list of all of the applications that you had listed. You had multiple systems, multiple source environments on Siebel, on Oracle. Every time you go through a migration process, one of those source systems will change. Think about having to do that migration for every single project. This is where, by leveraging those skills, implementing a data migration factory process, you'll start to see some of the benefits of repeatability, the ability to implement improvements as you learn mistakes from one application migration, apply the best practices to the next, have shareable, reusable assets. In the case of mappings, be able to deploy and define a mapping once, reuse it across multiple projects. Having peoples and skill sets that are reusable from project to project so that you have the right people on the project at all times. Define your processes, define your data quality rules, define your data transformations. Do that on a repeatable basis. Testing. In one of the project descriptions in the previous presentation, the development and testing can take as much as 50% of a project deployment time. Best practices suggest that you should test on a small subset, make sure that you have a repeatable process, continually improve through using an iterative approach. With Informatica, when you have a platform that supports the ability to connect to multiple platforms, not just Siebel running on Oracle, but maybe it's a SQL Server database application, maybe it's a system that's in the cloud, maybe it's something on premises. You want to be able to leverage a platform that has the connectivity no matter where the data resides, whether it's on premise today or in the cloud tomorrow. You want to have that data migration process that supports connecting to the system, discovering where the data quality issues exist, define that cleansing process before you go live, normalize the information, reuse those maplets, load the data, and then have an automated validation process in there to eliminate any manual process of looking for where there might be a data quality issue. But think about where you could implement approaches to speed the implementation. You can eliminate any risk of someone having unauthorized access to sensitive data. You can maximize your return on investment by archiving or sunsetting the system that you're replacing. Be able to do that migration without having any impact on the production system. Many application go-lives will have your production system running in parallel while you have your new system going online. It's very common. If you can implement a zero-impact migration strategy where as soon as you cut over to the new application, you don't miss a beat with your business processes. I want to talk a little bit about data governance and some of the ways that our customers are saving millions of dollars and shortening their test and development cycles by as much as 30%. Many of the organizations that we work with have sensitive or confidential information that sits inside of their production databases. They will copy that production system for test, development, training, all of the non-production copies. If there is sensitive information that is sitting inside that production system, it will also sit in all the copies. And if you, like many of our customers, outsource or use consultants or contractors during your data migration project, they will have access to the sensitive information. If you have information in your database that crosses national borders that should not be crossing national borders, you may actually put your project at risk by exposing information to those that should not see it. What a lot of companies do is they'll write manual scripts to mask the data after they've created the clone. The problem with that is it takes a long time to create those scripts, it takes a long time to run them. You need to be able to have an approach where you can map to the data, implement a masking algorithm before that test environment is presented to your testing team, and do it in a way that makes the data completely usable, so it still looks like the same type of information, but it completely de-risks the data. And when you use a technology that automates this process, replaces the names with similar names but not the same, you're protecting the identity of the information, the customer's data, your corporate information, while making the data usable for testing processes. For your non-production copies, rather than create full clones of your production system, create a smaller, masked subset of your production environment using a fraction of the infrastructure resources, and then use that to create test data subsets that are specific for that particular test case. When you do this, you reduce the amount of information that you're storing in your non-production copies, but you're also speeding that development cycle because you can complete your regression tests, you can complete all of your integration tests much faster because you have a smaller environment to test against. When you put it all together, if you have the ability to start with a process that discovers the sensitive information, just like the tools that we talk about for data quality that looks for patterns of anomaly, with the same technology, you can use that discovery capability to look for locations of information that should be masked, sensitive data discovery. Then, with the same platform that we talked about, Informatica Power Center, you can use the test data management capability to mask that sensitive information using a series of algorithms to permanently alter the data in your non-production environments and create rules to create these test data subsets that you can use as a basis to superset, to create new test data sets, generate new test data for extreme use cases, and do it all using a common platform. Now, there are situations where you have users that have access to your production systems where you can't permanently change the data. Production support, you might have business analysts that need to be able to access those systems, but you need to protect the sensitivity of the information. With Informatica, we have a new technology called dynamic data masking, which acts like a database proxy. It sits between your production systems and your end users, and based on policy, will mask the data between the production system and the application. So when the user runs a report, business as usual, but if they don't have the right authority, the data will be masked in the application screen. It requires no application coding, no scripting. It's all part of the Informatica platform. And for those of you who have created auditing reports, know how much of a pain it is to create the reports that say we did what we said we were going to do. We have a whole compliance validation process that allows you to make sure that the data is masked in your non-production environments and make sure that you're following the rules when it comes to access and authority. Now, the same data privacy compliance validation is based on the same technology that you would use in your application and data migration processes to validate that when you've migrated the data, the values are the same. So again, being able to leverage the skill sets, leverage technology on a common platform, but for two completely different use cases, really makes the organization much more efficient. I want to talk about one more thing. Many times, organizations, when they run their migration process, they have a legacy system running at the same time as production. The problem is the end users never want to give up access to the old system. It's the reason why we still have mainframes running in our back office. It's the reason why we have so many source systems still running in the data center, consuming expensive resources. In fact, when most companies do their application migration business case, some of the justification is they're shutting down that old system, when in reality, many times they don't always shut it down right away. With Informatica application retirement and data archive, again, leveraging that same factory process, you can discover the applications, you can classify the data based on retention policy, you can archive all of the information that's sitting in that source environment, whether it's sitting on a production Oracle environment or a mainframe IMS, or even a old MUMPS database, for those who remember MUMPS. Archive the data, use the same data validation technology we've talked about to make sure that when the data is archived, it's exactly the same. You can then shut down that legacy system completely, the database, the storage, the operating system, the application server, the web server, everything, shut it completely down, and then maintain complete access to all of the archived data using your business objects, your business intelligence tool. It could be Excel, it doesn't matter. You still maintain access to the data. You can maintain your secure access policies, and you have the built-in audit requirements so that if you need to delete the data after a period of time and follow a retention strategy, you have that capability, again, within the same platform as well. Now, if you haven't gone through a process like this before, the first time through, it's always recommended to leverage professional services, whether it's from Informatica or our partners from KOMTAŞ. You can be guaranteed that the technology in the platform is based on industry-leading technology. Gartner places Informatica on the Leaders Quadrant for both data integration and data quality tools, but also in December of 2012, Gartner published their first static data masking Magic Quadrant, and again, we were also placed in the Leaders Quadrant for that new report as well. We have many customers that have gone through several iterations of retiring legacy applications. One example I want to bring up is EMC. For those of you who are familiar with EMC, they're an enterprise storage company. They have acquired over 40 companies in the last 4 years and have amassed over 400 redundant applications. They recently went through an ERP consolidation project on Oracle E-Business Suite, and now they're migrating to SAP. So they have gone through this process twice now. In the same time, they went through a data warehouse consolidation process and implemented a competency center based on Informatica. Because they had the technology and they had the skill sets in place, they were able to retire over 240 systems, more than what they had originally planned, and saved over $10 million as part of the project. Because they were able to leverage and reuse the technology, the skills, and the maplet transformations that they had previously defined for Oracle E-Business Suite. They then reapplied those same processes for their SAP migration. I want to thank you for your time. It was a short and brief presentation. If you have questions, I will be here later following the next presentation. There are more white papers available for you to load, and thank you very much for your time.